Every now and then, a discovery shakes the foundations of what we thought we knew. A map that shows Antarctica ice-free, a structure older than the pyramids, an artifact that doesn't belong to any known culture. These aren't fragments of fiction, they're real unearthed anomalies that defy logic and rewrite history. In the forgotten corners of our world, the past refuses to stay buried. And the deeper we dig, the stranger it becomes. High in the misty Bolivian Andes, hidden from the tourist trail and buried in centuries of silence, lies one of the greatest enigmas of the ancient world, a place where stone speaks in symbols and time seems frozen on the surface of a mountain. This is El Fuerte de Samaipata, a massive ceremonial complex carved not with walls or temples, but into the very flesh of the earth itself. Though officially recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1998, it remains astonishingly unknown, a lost marvel overshadowed by South America's more famous ruins like Machu Picchu or the Nazca Lines. At its core is something few have ever seen with their own eyes, a gigantic monolithic rock stretching over 200 meters, meticulously carved by hand into winding grooves, serpent-like channels, symbolic thrones, and mysterious patterns. It is not just an archaeological site, it is an unanswered question carved in stone. Who made this why, and what ancient knowledge lies encoded in its massive sandstone body? Prepare to journey into one of humanity's most overlooked wonders, where faith, astronomy, and myth collide in a masterpiece that refuses to be forgotten. What do you think lies behind these ancient carvings? Were they part of a forgotten religion, an astronomical code, or something far stranger? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your theory. The most striking and unforgettable feature of El Fuerte de Samaipata is undoubtedly the enormous sandstone monolith that crowns the top of a hill. Measuring over 220 meters in length and approximately 60 meters wide, the surface of the rock is far from smooth. It's covered in hundreds of carvings, grooves, staircases, geometric symbols, and ritual water channels, all executed with remarkable precision and intentionality. These carvings are far more than mere decoration. They appear to follow a deliberate spatial logic, suggesting uses that may have included religious rituals, astronomical observations, or high-level socio-political ceremonies. One of the most intriguing elements is a series of serpentine grooves that twist and wind along the rock's surface, evoking the serpent symbolism found in Mesoamerican cultures like the Olmec or Maya. Elsewhere, seats carved directly into the stone suggest the presence of ritual thrones or priestly altars. In other areas, carved channels seem to have been used to conduct water for ritual cleansing or perhaps sacrificial offerings. To this day, scholars have yet to agree on the full purpose of this rock, but what is undeniable is that carving such an enormous block of stone with primitive tools must have required extraordinary technical skill, organizational power, and physical effort. This may well be the largest single-piece megalithic carving known from the prehistoric world, surpassing the scale of many standalone monuments globally. The name El Fuerte, meaning the fortress, is somewhat misleading as it suggests a military stronghold. In truth, modern archaeological surveys have revealed that the site was not a fortification, but rather a ceremonial religious and astronomical complex, rich in symbolism and spiritual significance, with no defensive function. At the heart of this sacred complex stands the carved monolith. Surrounding it are the remains of smaller stone structures, likely temples or residences for priests and high-ranking officials. A carefully constructed stairway leads up to the monolith, a strong indication that access to the stone was a sacred right reserved for specific individuals in a structured, perhaps hierarchical, spiritual setting. Another aspect that makes El Fuerte truly fascinating is the layered evidence of multiple ancient civilizations. Though the Inca are the most well-known civilization associated with the site, archaeological data points to even older groups such as the Chavin culture predating the Inca by many centuries. In addition, artistic and symbolic influences from Amazonian indigenous peoples are visible in some of the carvings, especially those featuring animals or mystical creatures, a stark contrast to the geometric and solar motifs typical of classic Incan art. This blend of styles and traditions suggests that El Fuerte de Samaipata served as a cultural and spiritual crossroads between the Andean highlands and the Amazonian lowlands. It was more than just a structure, it was a spiritual map, representing the fusion of cosmologies, symbols, and beliefs from multiple ancient communities. One of the most fascinating theories about El Fuerte de Samaipata is its possible role as an ancient astronomical observatory. Many modern researchers believe that the grooves carved into the massive rock surface were not merely decorative or ritualistic, but served a more functional purpose to measure and track celestial phenomena. The parallel and intersecting lines may have been carefully aligned to match the position of the sun during solstices, summer and winter, and equinoxes, spring and fall, helping to determine key dates for planting, harvesting, or performing seasonal rituals. In addition, some geometric patterns and abstract carvings might represent constellations or celestial markers used by ancient people for orientation and calendar making. If this theory is correct, then El Fuerte de Samaipata could stand alongside renowned astronomical sites like Stonehenge in England or Intihuatana at Machu Picchu as one of the oldest sky-watching centers in the Americas. This would also suggest that the ancient priests were not merely spiritual intermediaries, but also sky readers who used the heavens as an intellectual tool to guide decisions for their communities, from agriculture to sacred ceremonies. After the fall of the Inca Empire to Spanish conquistadors in the 16th century, El Fuerte and its surrounding region fell into abandonment, overgrown by vegetation and slowly lost to memory. For centuries, the site lay hidden beneath soil and jungle until the 20th century, when archaeologists began to rediscover and study its extraordinary features. Although many important discoveries have since been made, a large portion of the site remains unexcavated. Numerous buildings and chambers may still lie buried, waiting to be revealed. This gives Samaipata enormous potential for future research, not only for historians and archaeologists, but also for anyone intrigued by the ancient world's mysteries. Even today, El Fuerte de Samaipata is not widely promoted as a tourist destination, unlike many of South America's other heritage sites. Ironically, this very fact has helped it maintain its sense of mystery, authenticity, and untouched grandeur. But with proper attention and preservation, El Fuerte could easily become a global hub for scientific, spiritual, and archaeological exploration, where visitors can witness the genius of ancient civilization carved into stone, a language of its own, timeless and silent. El Fuerte de Samaipata is a powerful reminder that there is still so much modern science cannot fully explain. The intricately carved monolithic stone, both artistic and symbolic, stands as proof of the ingenuity, belief systems, and organizational abilities of ancient humans far beyond what we often imagine. In today's world, where we so often overlook the past, sites like El Fuerte serve as gateways into the depths of human history, voices from the earth, from stone, and from the skies calling out to be heard once more. Deep within the desolate cliffs of Wyoming's San Pedro Mountains, a terrifying discovery was made in 1932. A tiny human mummy, seated cross-legged as if meditating in the shadows of a forgotten world. It stood no taller than 40 centimeters, yet bore the wrinkled face of an old man, sharp animal-like teeth, and an eternal stare that made you feel like it had once been alive. Not a legend, not a hoax. This mummy was real. It was displayed studied and X-rayed, and it sparked fierce debate among scientists at the time. Was it a deformed infant, a lost tribe of tiny humans, or perhaps even proof that Homo sapiens weren't the only intelligent beings to walk this land? But the most chilling part isn't its strange appearance. It's this: the mummy vanished without a single trace. No one knows where it went. No museum holds it. No official record confirms its fate. It was once here, and now, as if it never existed at all. What do you think about this mysterious creature? Was it simply a deformed child, naturally preserved by the environment, or could it be evidence of an entirely different human species that once existed but vanished from history? And if it truly did exist, why did it disappear without a trace? Was it hidden away? Was the evidence deliberately destroyed? Or maybe we're just not ready to face a truth this big? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We genuinely want to know what you believe. The story begins in 1932 when two gold prospectors, Cecil Main and Frank Carr, were blasting through the thick rock of a small cave near Casper, Wyoming. As the dust settled, they discovered something completely unexpected inside a small hallowed chamber: the mummified remains of a tiny human-like figure sitting upright, arms folded calmly across its chest, legs crossed. It looked old, impossibly small, and yet disturbingly real. What shocked both scientists and the public was its incredibly small size, combined with strangely mature features. The mummy measured only about 18 cm 7 inches while seated, and around 35 cm 14 inches when fully extended, roughly the size of a newborn baby. However, its face didn't look innocent or underdeveloped. On the contrary, it appeared aged, with thick eyelids, a flat nose, dark leathery skin, and most disturbingly, a mouth filled with sharp triangular teeth. The structure of its skull and the proportions of its body didn't resemble those of a child. It looked more like a fully grown adult, shrunk down to an impossible size. Shortly after its discovery, the mummy quickly drew public and media attention. It was once displayed in a Wyoming drugstore where hundreds of people came to witness this strange little being. However, many remained skeptical, believing it to be an elaborate hoax. But scientific analysis at the time began to unravel that theory. X-ray scans revealed something astonishing: a fully developed skeleton inside, with a clear spine, ribbed skull, and limbs. Some doctors even concluded that the bone structure resembled that of an adult, rather than a child. Most remarkably, one image appeared to show solid food still inside the stomach, suggesting that this creature had once lived and eaten like a human. If it was truly a newborn, then it resembled no medical case ever documented. Some Native American tribes, particularly the Shoshone, added another layer to the mystery. Their oral traditions spoke of a race of tiny people called the Nimerigar, ferocious, small-statured warriors known for using poison-tipped arrows and living in remote mountain regions. The mummy, with its warlike teeth and strange posture, seemed to match these legends disturbingly well. Could this be a real-life Nimerigar preserved through the centuries? On the other hand, skeptics and scientists offered more conventional explanations. Some theorized that the mummy was a child with an encephaly, a rare congenital disorder that causes underdevelopment of the brain and skull. Others believed it might be a fetus that was either stillborn or miscarried, then naturally mummified in the dry mountain cave. These theories would have been plausible if not for the advanced bone structure and teeth that didn't match known fetal development. Although the true origin of the Pedro mummy remains a topic of debate, what makes it one of the most chilling mysteries isn't its strange appearance, but rather how it vanished entirely from the modern world. After a period of public fascination, the mummy passed through the hands of several owners, with the last known name being Ivan T. Goodman, a Wyoming businessman known for his promotional skills. Goodman had exhibited the mummy and made efforts to contact scientists and the media for further study. But after his death in the 1950s, no one ever saw the mummy again. It was never donated to a museum, never sent to a university, and no official record ever confirmed where it ended up. No will, no asset inventory, no verified buyer. The mummy simply disappeared as if it had never existed, leaving behind a haunting void in the archaeological history of the United States. Despite multiple investigations over the decades by journalists, amateur historians, and even television crews, the current location of the San Pedro Mountains mummy remains unknown. It is one of the few scientifically verified anomalies to have physical proof, X-rays, photographs, witness testimonies, and yet no surviving specimen. Without the body, modern science cannot apply DNA testing, CT scans, carbon dating, or tissue analysis. All we have left are faded photos, grainy articles, and a handful of medical reports from nearly a century ago. And that absence, more than anything else, has allowed myths to flourish. Some suggest the mummy was hidden intentionally, perhaps by someone who feared its implications. Others believe it was stolen, sold into private collections, or destroyed to prevent unwanted attention. A darker theory claims it was confiscated by authorities or institutions who wanted to suppress its existence because acknowledging a race of little people or a new human species might challenge mainstream anthropological timelines. Today, the only tangible evidence that remains is a set of black and white photographs, some taken with a ruler next to the mummy to verify its size. There are also a few surviving X-ray scans stored in medical archives, but the mummy itself, gone. Not even a rumor has placed it in a private collection in recent decades. This silent vanishing act has made the Pedro mummy more than just a curiosity. It has become an American legend. It stands at the eerie intersection of anthropology, folklore, conspiracy, and the unexplained. Unlike other cryptids or mythical creatures, this one was real, once studied and documented. But now it exists only in records and stories. And perhaps that's the most unsettling thing. What happens when physical truth disappears? What if the only remnants of something so mysterious are photographs and fading memories? What if we had in our hands a clue to a hidden chapter of human history and we let it slip away? In the heart of northern Italy, hidden beneath alpine fog and time-worn cliffs, lies a place that defies everything we think we know about human history. Val Camonica, a serene valley in Lombardy, holds more than just the echoes of ancient life. It holds a message carved in stone, one that shouldn't exist. Scattered across the valley's rock faces are over 140,000 petroglyphs etched by hands that lived and died thousands of years ago. Scenes of hunting rituals and daily survival fill the stones, but among them are figures that don't belong. Figures with bulbous helmets, sealed suits, and limb proportions eerily reminiscent of modern astronauts. These carvings are not isolated, not random. They are repeated, deliberate, and chillingly consistent. So the question isn't whether ancient people left us clues. The question is, what exactly did they see? And why, out of all things, to carve into rock for eternity did they choose this? What do you think these ancient people witnessed? Were they depicting gods' rituals or something far more extraordinary, like visitors from beyond our world? Drop your thoughts, theories, or wildest guesses in the comments below. We're reading every one of them. Let's unravel this mystery together. Among the more than 140,000 rock carvings found in Val Camonica, most depict familiar aspects of prehistoric life, hunting, farming, religious rituals, and mythological symbols. However, hidden among these ordinary scenes are carvings that are almost too strange to believe. They portray human-like figures with unusually large, round heads, resembling sealed protective helmets, with the neck and shoulders fused as if locked into a rigid frame. Their entire bodies appear to be covered in full-body suits, standing upright with stiff, immobile limbs, bearing an uncanny resemblance to modern astronaut suits. The presence of such bizarre imagery in an otherwise primitive archaeological site raises a haunting question. Are these merely symbolic depictions, religious visions, or visual records of an actual encounter with something extraordinary? This distinctive imagery has fueled decades of heated debate. Proponents of the ancient aliens theory, who believe extraterrestrials visited Earth in ancient times, regard these carvings as key visual evidence. They argue that in a society still entrenched in hunting and gathering, with no exposure to metalwork or complex technology, how could they conceive of a being in something resembling a modern spacesuit unless they had truly seen or interacted with such entities? One of the most controversial details at Val Camonica is the depiction of strange helmets worn by some of the figures carved into the rock. These helmets are perfectly round and fully enclosed, bearing no resemblance to any known form of traditional headdress, animal skin cap, or prehistoric battle gear ever identified in archaeology. Remarkably, some carvings even show rays of light emanating from these helmets, interpreted by some as headlamps or radiant energy sources. This is extremely difficult to explain, as no one would expect to find depictions of artificial light carved into rock over 10,000 years old. Furthermore, all familiar cultural elements are completely absent. There are no bows, no stone weapons, no fur clothing. Instead, the figures appear to be wearing some kind of seamless body armor, fully enclosed and with no identifiable material. The presence of such unfamiliar and out-of-place features makes these figures feel entirely disconnected from the cultural context of their time, as if they do not belong to the prehistoric human world at all. It's not just the clothing that raises questions. The posture of the carved figures is also highly unusual. They are often shown standing upright, with arms extended sideways or reaching forward, creating the impression of landing, communicating, or sending a signal. This type of stance is not commonly found in rock art from the same period. Even more intriguingly, some figures are surrounded by circular shapes, outlines, or disc-like symbols, which many interpret as flying craft, technological devices, or energy fields. While there is no direct evidence that these were actual machines, the striking consistency and bizarre level of detail in these depictions make it difficult to dismiss them as purely symbolic art, especially when viewed in the broader context of the entire site. Another remarkable detail is that the figures wearing helmets and strange suits don't appear just once. They are repeated across multiple locations throughout the Val Camonica Valley. This repetition suggests they were not merely products of spontaneous imagination, but rather symbolic images that were preserved and passed down through generations. Due to their high frequency and consistent depiction, many alternative researchers believe these figures may represent supernatural beings that were worshipped perhaps as sky gods or entities from the stars. This idea resonates with global myths, from the sky teachers of the ancient Sumerians to the space-traveling deities of Mayan, Egyptian, and ancient Indian cultures. In response to the growing interest in the ancient astronaut theory, mainstream archaeologists have consistently maintained a skeptical and cautious stance. They argue that seeing astronauts in these petroglyphs is not objective evidence, but rather the result of a psychological phenomenon known as cognitive projection, where modern individuals project their own worldview and contemporary technology onto ancient symbols. From this perspective, the figures wearing helmets and suits may not represent real beings, but instead be ritualistic symbols, mythological figures, or participants in sacred ceremonies. What some interpret as a protective helmet could actually be a sacred mask, and the full bodysuit might be a ceremonial costume made from bark animal hide or woven fabric similar to those still used by some indigenous tribes today. Additionally, some scholars suggest that the circular shapes around the heads are not helmets at all, but rather halos, symbols of power or divinity that are widely present in religious art around the world. Yet even with these plausible interpretations, the greatest shortcoming of the academic explanation is that no consistent and comprehensive answer has ever been provided for these unique forms. Why do only a handful of the thousands of carvings display such peculiar appearances? And why are the depictions so remarkably consistent across multiple sites? The ultimate question remains unanswered. Whether helmeted beings of Val Camonica, ritualistic depictions, symbolic inventions, or actual witnesses of some interstellar encounter, Val Camonica stands not just as an archaeological valley, but as a gateway to deeper questions about the unwritten history of humanity. It reminds us that the line between archaeology and mystery is thin and shifting, and perhaps not everything carved in stone can be explained by Stone Age minds. Beneath the windswept grasslands of northern Scotland lies a secret the Earth tried to keep hidden for over 5,000 years. Not a castle, not a tomb, but a fully furnished Stone Age village so well preserved, so eerily modern, that it looks like its people just stepped out for the day and never returned. This is Skara Brae, a prehistoric settlement, older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge, yet with stone houses, complete with beds, cupboards, hearths, and even plumbing. But what truly chills the spine isn't just how advanced it was, it's the silence. No bodies, no signs of violence, no destruction. Just homes, perfectly intact, as if frozen mid-life, waiting for people who vanished without a word. How could a civilization so organized, so advanced, disappear so completely? This is not just a Neolithic village, this is an anomaly. What do you think happened to the people of Skara Brae? Was it a storm, a ritual departure, or something else entirely? Drop your theories in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Discovered in 1850, after a violent storm tore through the coastline and ripped away centuries of grass and soil, Skara Brae revealed something archaeologists could barely believe. A Stone Age community older than Stonehenge and the Great Pyramids, yet with homes that looked remarkably livable. Beds, shelves, hearths, drainage systems. Not primitive pits in the dirt, but crafted stone furniture, still standing. Each house in Skara Brae stands as a testament to the precision and sustainable thinking of Neolithic people. Built entirely from large stone slabs, the structures were fitted so tightly that not even sea winds could penetrate them over the course of more than 5,000 years. These were not makeshift shelters, they were true living spaces, organized and clearly functional. Each home featured a central hearth, two symmetrical stone beds, and a square-shaped stone cupboard placed directly opposite the entrance, possibly used to store or display valuable items. Some homes also had low stone benches along the walls, evoking the image of people gathering, warming themselves, cooking and telling stories, much like any modern family today. These spaces were not just places to sleep, they were places to live, to bond, and to preserve a way of life. The uniformity and care in design reveal that the inhabitants of Skara Brae weren't merely surviving, they were creating a true sense of home amidst a wild, untamed landscape. One of the most astonishing discoveries at Skara Brae is the evidence of a primitive domestic drainage system, something nearly unthinkable for the Neolithic period. Beneath the floors of several houses, archaeologists uncovered small stone channels, likely used to carry away waste and maintain hygiene within the home. Remarkably, some houses even had designated areas believed to be private toilets, with water from nearby streams used to flush waste outside. At a time when most ancient societies had yet to develop any real concept of personal sanitation, Skara Brae demonstrated a forward-thinking awareness, not only building shelters for survival, but ensuring that living spaces remained clean, livable, and sustainable. Unlike many other Neolithic settlements, Skara Brae was anything but scattered. The houses were connected by roofed passageways, forming a closed, organized network of living spaces. This level of connectivity suggests a tightly knit community, possibly following a shared architectural or social philosophy. Notably, almost all the homes were identical in size and layout. There were no larger dwellings, no signs of social stratification. This points to Skara Brae being a rare example of egalitarian society in the Stone Age, where people likely shared space resources and a communal way of life, free from the divisions of wealth or power. But then comes the real mystery. They vanished, not in a blaze of warfare, not in a flood or volcanic eruption, not with evidence of famine or plague, no skeletons, no mass graves, no burned walls. The inhabitants of Skara Brae simply disappeared. What makes Skara Brae truly haunting is not just that its people disappeared, but how they disappeared. Archaeologists uncovered a full range of objects, tools, jewelry, pottery, carved stones, even toys, yet not a single human remain has ever been found. No graves, no hidden bones, nothing washed away. The villagers seem to have left their homes peacefully, as if they were simply stepping out for a while, and never returned. Even more strangely, they left everything behind. Stone dishes remained in place. Beds were undisturbed, ashes still rested in hearths, and finely crafted items, like a carved piece of whalebone or a perfectly shaped flint blade, still sat untouched on shelves. There were no signs of panic, no burning, no warfare. Everything appears to have been deliberately but mysteriously abandoned. But why? Some believe a massive storm or sudden environmental change, like coastal flooding, made life at Skara Brae untenable. The village does sit near the shore after all, and some of the remaining structures have sea spray etchings on their stones. Rising sea levels or violent winter storms could have pushed the inhabitants inland. But if so, where did they go? Why did they not take their tools, their ornaments, their valuables? Others suggest the community simply grew too large, or its trade routes declined. Perhaps the soil grew thin, or food sources shifted, but that doesn't explain the eerie silence of the site. If Skara Brae had moved, there would likely be evidence of resettlement nearby another village, more tool signs of migration. Yet, none have been found. One of the most haunting elements is the absence of defensive structures. No fences, no walls, no fortifications. In a world where many Neolithic communities lived in fear of raiders of wild animals, of rival tribes, Skara Brae appears blissfully unbothered. This could mean the village existed in a time or place of great peace, or perhaps they were isolated, cut off from the violence of the wider world, protected by geography or something else entirely. But if that protection failed, if something finally breached their calm, what was it? A particularly grim theory suggests disease may have wiped out the population quickly and quietly. But again, we find no skeletons, no signs of burning, no mass disposal pits. Could the bodies have been taken or buried elsewhere? Or could it be that Skara Brae was a ceremonial site, never permanently inhabited, though the wear on the beds and hearths strongly contradicts that idea? Perhaps the most chilling idea is this: the people of Skara Brae didn't vanish because of external forces. They left because they chose to. A deliberate departure, maybe a spiritual migration, a mass ritual exodus. Maybe they believed something greater was calling them beyond the horizon. But if so, why leave behind the comforts they built? The beds, the warmth, the drainage, the community. Why leave a near-perfect village frozen in time? Skara Brae remains one of archaeology's most haunting enigmas because it gives us so much and yet tells us so little. We see their architecture, but not their faces. We know how they lived, but not why they left. We understand their ingenuity, but not their destiny. And so the grass still grows over the roofs of the ancient stone homes. The sea still howls nearby, just as it did 5,000 years ago. And inside those perfectly preserved rooms, time stands still waiting for the people who never returned. Buried deep in the highlands of Bolivia, far from any known cradle of written language, lies a stone bowl that defies everything we thought we knew about ancient history. At first glance, it's unassuming, a weathered artifact nestled in Andean soil decorated with indigenous motifs. But inside, a stunning revelation. Etched into its inner surface are symbols eerily similar to Sumerian cuneiform, the wedge-shaped script developed over 5,000 years ago in Mesopotamia. How did these ancient marks, once used by temple scribes of a civilization halfway across the world, end up here in the heart of South America? Could this be the ultimate evidence of prehistoric transoceanic contact, or is it a modern enigma hiding in plain sight? Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain: the Fuente Magna Bowl is more than just an archaeological curiosity. It's a direct challenge to the boundaries of our historical imagination. And it all begins with the most astonishing detail of all. The script inside may not just be Sumerian, it may be Proto-Sumerian, a forgotten language from the dawn of civilization itself. Let's dive in. What do you think? Could this bowl be genuine evidence of ancient Sumerian contact with the Americas? Or is it just a well-crafted modern hoax? Do you believe a forgotten form of writing, Proto-Sumerian, could have survived thousands of years and crossed oceans? Drop your theories, doubts, or wildest speculations in the comments below. Let's see what you make of this mystery. Since the discovery of the Fuente Magna Bowl, it has become the center of intense academic debate, especially among independent researchers. Standing out among them is Dr. Clyde Winters, an unorthodox linguist who has spent years analyzing the mysterious symbols carved inside the bowl. Rather than simply comparing the visual shapes of the symbols, Dr. Winters went further. He attempted to decipher the entire text as a grammatically coherent inscription in ancient Sumerian. What shocked the archaeological community most was his conclusion. The writing inside the Fuente Magna Bowl is not just standard Sumerian, but rather a strange hybrid between classical Sumerian and a more primitive form known as Proto-Sumerian, a pre-cuneiform writing system believed to have existed before the script was formalized. If this interpretation is accurate, then the bowl doesn't merely contain Sumerian script. It captures a transitional phase in the history of writing when early humans began inscribing symbolic language into stone to communicate with gods and society. The existence of such a text, found in Bolivia, thousands of miles away from Mesopotamia, raises a profound question. Could there have once been a transoceanic contact lost to mainstream history? In mainstream academia, the concept of Proto-Sumerian, referring to primitive or pre-cuneiform Sumerian writing, is not as commonly used as the standardized cuneiform system. However, some researchers believe that before cuneiform was formalized in the 3rd millennium BCE, the Sumerians employed early symbolic forms, often individual pictographic symbols carved into stone or clay. These symbols were highly pictorial, lacking consistent structure, yet they played a crucial role in ritual and religious practices. Dr. Clyde Winters argues that many of the symbols inside the Fuente Magna bowl do not match the standard cuneiform charts, but instead resemble Proto-Sumerian glyphs, which were typically used in religious rituals, prayers, or to convey sacred decrees in ancient Mesopotamian society. According to him, this may be evidence that the Fuente Magna preserves an ancient liturgical language dating back to a time when writing first emerged as a means of connecting with the spiritual world. Even more astonishing, the sentence structure, grammar, and devotional content of the inscription on the bowl are strikingly similar to known Sumerian religious texts. According to Dr. Clyde Winters' translation, the inscription inside the Fuente Magna bowl is not an ordinary record, but rather a sacred prayer dedicated to a goddess named Nia, a deity described as representing life, fertility, and the harvest. Nia's role in this text bears strong similarities to prominent goddesses in Sumerian mythology, such as Inanna, goddess of love and war, or Ninhursag, mother of humankind. The content engraved on the bowl, if translated correctly, is a solemn invocation. We offer this gift to the goddess Nia, mother of life, she who gave birth to humankind. May she bless us with abundant harvests and protect our descendants. If this translation is accurate, then the Fuente Magna bowl is not just an artifact inscribed with Sumerian script in South America, but also a religious text, the highest form of writing in the ancient world, typically reserved for temples or ceremonial rites. This makes the bowl even more astonishing and enigmatic, as it reflects not only the language, but also the spiritual worldview of the Sumerians in a land half a world away from their homeland. One of the most unusual and controversial aspects of the Fuente Magna bowl is the stark contrast between its exterior style and its interior content. In terms of shape, material, and decorative motifs, the bowl clearly reflects the pre-Columbian Andean cultural tradition, closely resembling stone ceramics from the Pucara or Tiwanaku civilizations around Lake Titicaca. If the inner inscriptions were absent, archaeologists would likely classify it as a typical artifact of native South American origin. However, inside the bowl is a system of symbols resembling ancient Sumerian cuneiform, which has no known counterpart in any culture of the Americas. This raises a difficult question: if the bowl was made by Andean hands who inscribed Sumerian script into it. On the other hand, if it was brought from Mesopotamia, why does it bear a distinctly Bolivian design rather than Mesopotamian artistic features? This contradiction lies at the heart of what makes the Fuente Magna bowl such a profound and unresolved mystery. If Dr. Clyde Winters' hypothesis is correct, that the inscription on the Fuente Magna bowl is indeed ancient Sumerian or Proto-Sumerian script, then it leads to a staggering conclusion: the Sumerians may have once crossed the ocean and set foot in South America thousands of years ago. Not only that, but they also left behind linguistic traces carved in stone, right in the heart of the distant Andean region. If this possibility were ever confirmed, it would completely overturn the foundations of mainstream history, which asserts that there was no contact between the Old World Asia, Europe, Africa, and the New World, the Americas, prior to the time of the Vikings or Columbus. This is not just an archaeological question, it is a direct challenge to how humanity understands the spread and limitations of ancient civilizations. To this day, the Fuente Magna Bowl remains one of the most controversial artifacts in the field of archaeology. Many mainstream scholars reject its authenticity, suggesting that it may be a modern hoax created to attract attention or to support fringe historical theories. They argue that there is no official archaeological record documenting the time or location of its discovery, and no peer-reviewed academic research has confirmed that the inscriptions are genuine Sumerian cuneiform. However, one crucial point remains to date: no scientific analysis has conclusively proven the bowl to be a forgery. The artifact is still preserved in Bolivia, though not widely displayed, continuing to raise the question: is this a forgotten relic of ancient contact, or merely an archaeological riddle crafted in modern times? Could the Fuente Magna Bowl be a revolutionary piece of evidence, suggesting that Sumerians made contact with pre-Columbian South America, or a clever forgery designed to stir curiosity and sell a mystery? What is certain is this: standing before the Fuente Magna Bowl forces us to ask how much of human history still lies buried beyond the margins of accepted knowledge. High in the Chilean Andes, far from any road village or sign of life, lies a vast stone platform that shouldn't exist. No walls, no inscriptions, no ruins, just a geometric plane of perfectly cut basalt blocks, over 200 of them, spread across a desolate mountaintop like some forgotten runway. They're massive, meticulously placed, unnaturally smooth, and they sit here in complete silence as if waiting. Locals call it El Enladrillado, the bricked place, but no one knows who built it, how, or why. There are no records, no myths, not even a clue as to when it was made. It's not as famous as Machu Picchu, not as artistic as the Nazca lines, but this place poses a far more unsettling question. What kind of intelligence would create something so deliberate in a place so unreachable? Some say it was a ceremonial site. Others believe it was made for the stars. And some whisper that it was never meant for humans at all. Welcome to El Enladrillado, a stone mystery carved into the sky. So what do you think? Could this platform be the work of an ancient forgotten civilization, or something even more mysterious? Was it built for the gods, the stars, or something not of this earth? Share your theory in the comments below. We want to hear your take on El Enladrillado. What purpose do you believe it once served? El Enladrillado sits precariously at an altitude of over 2,300 meters above sea level, nestled in the remote mountains of Altos del Lirque National Park in central Chile. There are no major roads leading to the area, no rest stations, and perhaps most notably, no signs of any ancient settlements nearby. Even today, reaching this site requires at least 7 to 8 hours of continuous hiking through dense forest, steep inclines, and unforgiving terrain. No modern vehicle can access the plateau, only your feet and determination will get you there. And it's precisely this extreme isolation that makes El Enladrillado all the more bizarre. If this was truly built by an ancient civilization, why choose such a remote, inaccessible location? Could they have had a special purpose, ritualistic, astronomical, or something entirely beyond our modern imagination? Even more puzzling, the surrounding area shows no evidence of villages, temples, agriculture, or any form of sustained human activity. Why construct a massive stone platform in a place no one lived, and who could have had the means to transport hundreds of multi-ton stone blocks all the way up to this high-altitude plateau. Perhaps the most striking thing about El Enladrillado is the complete silence surrounding its origin and purpose. No one knows when this platform was created, who built it, or most importantly, why they did it. There are no ancient texts that mention El Enladrillado, no local legends, no Inca records, not even the oral folklore often associated with sacred or mysterious sites. The Inca civilization, the greatest empire ever to rule the Andes, left no evidence suggesting they were even aware of its existence. Archaeological surveys have yielded no clear answers, no pottery shards, no stone tools, no artifacts that could help establish its age. All that remains are massive basalt blocks, flat, geometric, and arranged with astonishing precision. Some scholars have proposed that the platform may belong to a pre-Inca culture that vanished without a trace. But this theory faces a major contradiction. If they were advanced enough to transport and align hundreds of multi-ton stones on a remote mountaintop, why didn't they leave any other signs of their existence? No dwellings, no tombs, no signs of daily life. Other theories have been suggested. Some believe it was an ancient ceremonial site, yet there are no statues, altars, or ritual remains, no ash, no animal bones, no offerings. Others argue it was an astronomical observatory, but the surface is perfectly flat and lacks alignments to the sun or stars, unlike structures such as Stonehenge. There are even suggestions that it was simply a giant foundation floor, but this is a weak claim. No ancient civilization would go to such lengths at such altitude just to build something with no purpose. Even more strangely, many of the stones show signs of deliberate craftsmanship: smooth surfaces, tightly fitted edges, some with visible supports underneath, and others slightly raised, as if to signal something. But signal to whom and for what? All of this leaves El Enladrillado in a peculiar gray zone, too precise to be natural, yet too empty and isolated to fit into any known cultural framework. In the absence of a convincing explanation from mainstream science, several alternative theories have begun to attract attention. One of the most widely discussed is the idea that El Enladrillado may have been an ancient UFO landing site, a theory featured in the popular documentary series Ancient Aliens. Supporters of this theory point out that the platform has a perfectly squared and symmetrical layout resembling a massive runway. Its position, high up on an isolated plateau, far from any settlement or infrastructure, is unsuitable for everyday human life, but ideal for aerial access. Additionally, there are no signs of ancient human activity nearby, no dwellings, no tools, no ceremonial areas, no burial sites, which leads some to believe the location was never intended for human use, but rather as a staging area, contact point, or even landing zone for a non-human intelligence. Naturally, mainstream archaeologists dismiss this theory due to the lack of physical evidence. Yet as conventional explanations continue to fail, these so-called fringe ideas, despite being controversial, only add to the mystique and allure of El Enladrillado. El Enladrillado is more than just a stone platform. It stands as a silent yet powerful question, challenging everything we believe we know about the past. Its very existence raises profound doubts. Could there have been ancient civilizations that once flourished and vanished without a trace? Is it possible that people long ago possessed knowledge of construction, transportation, or astronomy that we have yet to rediscover? Or is it simply a strange geological coincidence, a natural formation that happens to resemble a man-made structure? Whatever the truth may be, El Enladrillado remains solid, mysterious, and unsolved. It doesn't just raise questions about Chile or the Andes, but strikes at the very foundations of our thinking. How much do we really know about the true history of humanity? If you ever have the chance to stand on that massive stone surface where mountain winds howl and the sky stretches to the horizon, you'll feel like you're facing something far beyond ordinary understanding. El Enladrillado says nothing. It leaves no instructions, but its very existence forces us to rethink our assumptions about ancient humans, or perhaps about someone else. And the question remains, after all these centuries, who built El Enladrillado, and for what purpose? Imagine breaking down a wall in your home, only to find a dark tunnel stretching deep into the earth, not a cave, but the entrance to an entire underground city. That's exactly what happened in Cappadocia, Turkey in the 1960s, and it opened the door to one of the greatest archaeological enigmas ever discovered. Beneath this rugged, alien-looking landscape lies something few could believe, a vast hidden world carved directly into the rock, with entire cities plunging 18 stories underground. Inside, sleeping quarters, churches, wineries, livestock pens, entire communities built to survive without sunlight. Who were these people? Why did they go underground? And what exactly were they hiding from? The deeper we dig, the stranger it gets. From the colossal Derinkuyu to the twisting labyrinths of Kaymakli and Mazi, these cities are not just marvels of engineering. They are warnings etched in stone. Because the greatest mystery is not how they were built, it's why they were ever needed. What do you think forced entire civilizations to abandon the surface and go underground? Was it war, a natural disaster, or something far more mysterious? Share your theory in the comments, we're reading them all. Unlike natural caves, Cappadocia's underground cities were entirely man-made, dug by hand with primitive tools thousands of years ago. They span dozens of levels, with clearly divided spaces for living quarters, churches, food storage, animal stables, wine presses, bakeries, wells, and even cemeteries. Some could accommodate more than 20,000 people, along with livestock and provisions, an almost unimaginable feat for any ancient society. The engineering is equally astonishing. The region's soft volcanic tuff rock is easy to carve but prone to collapse, yet the ancient builders created vast multi-story complexes that remained structurally sound. Ventilation shafts were cleverly placed, forming a passive airflow system that could circulate fresh air even to the deepest levels. Amazingly, this system still functions today. In addition to going deep, the ancient architects designed sophisticated security features to control movement and access. Between levels, they placed massive circular stone doors, like millstones, weighing hundreds of kilograms, used to seal off corridors. These doors could only be opened or closed from the inside, giving residents full control over who could enter. This suggests the underground cities were not only for living, but also designed for high-level defense. But defense from what? Why was there such a pressing need to hide so far underground? Why did people choose to live underground? This is the central question, and also the most haunting mystery that makes the underground cities of Cappadocia some of the most perplexing constructions in human history. No one knows for certain who first began digging deep into the earth in this region, nor do we fully understand why they needed a living space that was so concealed, fortified, and complex. Archaeologists and historians have proposed multiple theories, each compelling in its own way, but none can fully account for every trace left behind. The first and most common theory suggests that these underground cities were built to avoid war and invasions. Situated at the crossroads of ancient empires, Cappadocia was frequently subjected to attacks, raids, and occupations. People may have dug tunnels to hide temporarily, but if that were the case, why go to the trouble of constructing dozens of levels complete with churches, bakeries, wineries, and burial grounds? This was clearly a long-term survival system, not just a temporary refuge. Another theory proposes that during the Byzantine period, Christian communities used these underground spaces to escape religious persecution. This idea is supported by the presence of churches' crosses and prayer rooms in the upper levels. But the deeper one goes, the more religious symbols disappear, and the architectural style of the lower levels seems much older, possibly pre-Christian. This raises an even deeper question. Could ancient pre-religious societies have taken shelter underground long before Christianity existed? Some scholars have suggested the extreme climate of Cappadocia, with scorching heat during the day and freezing cold at night, as a reason for going underground, where temperatures are naturally stable. But this doesn't explain the military-style design of these cities, with enormous stone doors that lock from the inside, highly sophisticated ventilation shafts, and deep levels that are completely isolated from natural light. Then comes the boldest and most chilling theory. These cities were built to survive an ancient global catastrophe. According to this theory, thousands of years ago, humans may have witnessed or anticipated an apocalyptic event, a massive solar flare, an asteroid impact, a supervolcano eruption, a deadly pandemic, or perhaps a war so devastating it defied all comprehension. This wouldn't have been a matter of hiding for days or weeks, but a crisis so profound that the Earth's surface became uninhabitable for a prolonged period. The only option for survival: dig deep as possible. Look closely at the structure of the lowest levels. No windows, no light, no signs of normal daily life. Sometimes they have only one entrance from above, almost as if designed to be sealed shut from the inside. These aren't temporary shelters. They are waiting chambers in silence for the world above to heal. In fact, many of the lowest levels in cities like Derinkuyu remain unexplored to this day, either due to structural dangers or deliberate blockage. Could these lower levels be hiding a chapter of history humanity isn't yet ready to face? As outlandish as this theory may sound, it aligns uncannily with legends from ancient cultures around the world. The Greeks spoke of the underworld of Hades. The Hittites and Zoroastrians described subterranean worlds where people retreated to escape sky-borne calamities. Similar stories appear in Indian, Chinese, and South American traditions. Finally, some symbologists have offered a more spiritual interpretation, that the deeper levels weren't designed for survival, but for ritual or religious purposes. They may have represented a symbolic descent into the underworld, part of initiation rites or transitions between life and death. Some passageways twist and turn with no clear destination, more like ceremonial paths than practical corridors. So were these cities homes, shelters, or ancient temples carved into the darkness? Though civilizations like the Hittites, Phrygians, Byzantines, and Romans all lived in Cappadocia, it's still unclear who first carved into the earth. Some theorists suggest the earliest layers could date back 3,000 to 4,000 years, possibly to the Neolithic or early Bronze Age. If so, these cities predate even the Egyptian pyramids and may have been gradually expanded over millennia, a shared architectural legacy built and rebuilt by many hands but forgotten by time. So far, archaeologists have discovered more than 200 underground cities in Cappadocia, but only about 40 are accessible, and only a few like Derinkuyu are fully excavated. Recent surveys have uncovered kilometers of underground tunnels connecting different cities, suggesting the entire region may have once been a massive underground megastructure, something the modern world is just beginning to understand. The more we excavate, the more these underground cities challenge our assumptions about history? Could we be missing a massive chapter in humanity's past, a time when people lived underground, not by choice, but by necessity? Perhaps in the distant past, ancient civilizations foresaw or experienced a threat so grave that they abandoned the surface and built down instead. What do you think was the true purpose of these cities? Have we forgotten something vital, something our ancestors buried beneath the earth, not just in stone, but in silence? The answer may still be waiting in the deepest, darkest levels, untouched by modern eyes.